Well, welcome to episode one of the IP3 podcast. I'm Kevin,
I'm Alex.
And I'm Rhea.
and today we're going to talk about a few things. Primarily a glow up that a certain illusionist may or may not be receiving in short order. Uh, but first, we're going to recap a little bit about some big events that happened towards the end of the year. Obviously, World Championship Barcelona happened several weeks back and was uh, quite an event. Tragically, I was the only one of the three of us able to make it to that one, but we were uh, able to hit up the Realm Rumble in Columbus, Ohio, which was a stellar event that I'm pretty stoked that we're gonna get to go back to next year. Uh,
Even bigger and better.
Bigger
Twice
and
as
better,
big.
twice
Yeah.
as better. Um, but yeah, Worlds was cool. The venue was awesome. They sort of continue to improve on their Pro Tour and Worlds formula.
What, no tent?
No
You, you,
tent.
you didn't you didn't miss the tent?
I did not miss the tent.
Were bathrooms indoors this time?
Uh, yes, they were, and
Oh,
it was delightful. Now the venue
So
is actually stellar, albeit slightly hard to find compared to like where if you type in the address into Google Maps, it brings you to like the front of the building, and it was like three city blocks around it, but like on the very backside. So it was a little hard to
the
find.
Orlando Convention Center type thing where you
Not
walking a
not
mile to.
quite not quite Orlando Convention Center scale, uh, but also once I found it the first time, it was there was massive banners and it was hard to miss at that point. But uh, fortunately, we got that out of the way on Thursday with the banquet, so we didn't have to struggle to find it Friday morning. Um, but
so you were the only one of the three of us that was there. You also were the only Vincent at the event, right? Walk us through that.
that was cool and daunting at the same time because it
A lot of
was like,
pressure.
yeah. So I was a game away from pulling off the ever sought after 100% day two conversion rate, but tragically I did not bring enough of my A game on the day to pull it off. Had a couple punts that uh, gave away games in round two and potentially round seven, which was a bummer. Um, but
Remind us that the hero you were looking to play against, and Bravo is the hero you were looking to not play against. So, what was the? How many of those did you play against?
two and one. So my CC rounds were Dromai, Azalea, Dromai, Bravo. And round two into Azalea was one of the ones that I just made a boneheaded error that gave away 3 points of life that proved to be the difference in the game. Like it does. Can't make mistakes at those sorts of events, but I did get my arguably most favorable matchup twice in 4 rounds, so no complaints there. And the game plan worked. I didn't go into single digit life totals against either of my Dromai opponents there. And yeah, those players are no slouches. But um, unfortunately, couldn't seal the deal with draft. Ended up being one of four maxes, but my deck was weirdly good despite that, even though you think four maxes and you think total train wreck. But
I've had that
um,
in draft too, where I'll end up drafting Dash and be like, "Wow, I think I'm probably like one of two. Like this deck seems really good." And then people talk about it after. It's like, "Oh yeah, there's four or five of us." It's like, I don't know how that's possible. My deck seems really good, but
right,
Well, I think that is trying to speak into how many archetypes there are within each hero in Bright Light's draft, because you can simultaneously have a fatigue max, a like full aggro max that has all of the red one for four pumps. you have overpower max, and you have mid range max, and like that's four max archetypes that can be all in a row and be looking for different cards, even though they're playing the same hero.
Yeah, I completely agree. And mine was not the fatigue max and was not the raw damage aggro version with all the jump starts, but I had um, several solid overpower cards and enough pumps to make it work, including I think I had like at least two, maybe three copies of Gigawatt that could work with hydraulic press or bull bar, um, and almost good enough. My basically I felt like I had a max deck that was very good into good Teklo decks, but a little probably worse off into like a max mirror if it's going to be a straight race. Um, but ironically, the one match I won with the deck was a max mirror in the first round. uh, the second round I played against a Teklo, got it down to 1, but then it was Chris Iali, and he let me put him to 1 so that he could swing back for 15 while I was at 1. So needless to say, I was dead after that. Um, and then the final round, so I ran the gauntlet. I had a Dio in round 7, and I should have sideboarded more of my items out. Um, Not necessarily all of them, because like you do need a certain amount of damage available to you to just win a game. But like I foolishly left in, there might have been two, but I know I at least left in like a polarity reversal script, which is a really stupid card to have in your deck if you're thinking there's a good chance you're going to have to block out. Um, and just the way the cards flowed, I ended up getting fully and completely punished for it. Um,
Mm.
and yeah, that was the tragic ending to my day one. Um, Funny coincidence though, on the second day of the event, uh, I so I dropped the calling before round 1, which is another funny story. But in one of the Sagrada constructed side events, I played against the lone Riptide player from Worlds, and he fatigued the shit out of me. It was not a
Really?
close game. No, it
Hmm.
was. So I, foolishly, I basically sideboarded like it was going to be the more like redline aggressive Riptide, and then when the game
Oh, it was
started,
just
I was
old.
like, I think this is like 72 cards that I'm
Oh,
facing down, and it wasn't even. I think I got him to like 15, maybe, but yeah, effortlessly fatigued me because I
so,
didn't board the Bravo package.
so you've got your full playset of Sidrata Familia sigils, and you're just playing three sigil solace in every deck forever now.
I do have my playset. I'm kind of like a sigil hater though. I
Mm.
don't like. I'm frustrated because I feel like I do have to legitimately give it a look in Vinset for what it represents as far as keeping Flail live longer into a game. But I don't love it. Mostly just because it's just so ubiquitous already. Like I like cards that help me lean into the theme more. Like Viserai is
See,
not someone who's gonna play Sigil.
I want everybody to start playing sigils so that I can start running Poison the Well.
Ma-
And because I'm sure you don't know what that card does, it's a blue no block that whenever you a hero would gain life, instead they lose that much as an instant. So
we have the technology. I will show
The
our
and
lovely viewers this
sigil.
card.
wait,
Haha, poison the well.
yes, a card everybody is buy it up now before everybody starts running sigil.
Yeah, it's
Not me. I've cut that card twice now from Azalea. Levi keeps trying to put that card back in his Azalea lists, and I keep taking his lists, and I'm like, all right, let's get this Sigil of Solace out of here and put a real card in its place.
for
You
about
know,
a
he played Levi played them against me at the Rumble, and they are very pretty.
He did.
Not
He
so
played
great
him
when
at
you when your opponent gains 6 life off of them, but yeah.
he played him at the 20k. I taught some sense at him. He replaced him with Fate for Scenes in the 10k, and that went a lot better. Um, but you mentioned Chris Iali earlier, and Alex talking about leaning into doing the thing. there were a lot of pros at Worlds that were playing maps, which kind of surprised me, and it led me down a maps rabbit hole. So Chris Howley, I know Matt Rogers was also playing maps. I think there were a few other names as well. And then we go to the 20K and the 10K, and Dan Rutkowski is also on the hero. I think that's really interesting considering how strong of a showing Dash Inventor Extraordinaire has had. I don't know. Have you all looked at maps much? I know Kevin, you put a lot of time into that hero when he first came out, right?
Yes, although weirdly, most of my brews I was like resistant to embracing the nitromechanoid. Uh,
Hmm.
I can't even tell you why. I think it just it felt more appealing to me to try and do, I don't know, almost a more value oriented build, like that was trying to just play that consistent aggressive offense with the big numbers, since you get six throttles thanks to rev up, and six zipper hits thanks to jumpstart.
Something like draft max, but just CC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This
uh,
man's never resolved an Ice Eternal in his life, and it
no,
shows.
you're you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Um,
Nitro Mechanoid is a combo card, and it reminds me a lot of the Ice Eternal Frostex game plan in Icelander, actually, because you just like play this value plan, setting up your pieces, and then suddenly you throw 30 damage at your opponent with a high octane Mechanoid.
yeah, I mean it's undeniably an incredibly powerful thing to be doing. Um, I think so early on, one of the people that we test with locally, his name's Brian, and he came at max from the other end of the spectrum and was 110% let's do nitromechanoid things. Um, and I think basically when I set max down from a brewing perspective, and the reason I didn't pick it back up for a while is like, so obviously if you pop off with high octane and 30 someone, it's obviously incredibly powerful. But I didn't feel like the the mechanoid, I guess, was fixing a problem that mechs had otherwise. It sort of felt
Mm.
like that. If you wanted a versatile game plan, how can you do better than running OG Dash with the item tutor and the ability to flex between the pistol control plan and hyper aggro max velocity versions? And then obviously Dio is, you know, uh, borderline Shadow Runeblade levels of combo aggression going on, and it just didn't feel like, or it felt like the only thing Max had going for him that was better than the other mechs was Nitro Mechanoid, and I just didn't see what in the metagame would have made that like really important, or like the reason to run it over the other mechs.
I think it's really funny that you mentioned that like Dash is a better flex deck between aggro and control because we actually saw the exact opposite in top eight of worlds, right? So on one hand, there was Matt W that top eighted essentially playing maximum velocity dot deck, including like red backup protocols in Inventor Extraordinaire just to rebuy 0 to 60s and max fees and let him really consistently throw 15, 20 damage at his opponent in a turn cycle. That's on one side, and on the other side there was Slapdash, Team Ascent. Obviously, I kind of know a little bit about them,
Just a bit.
and Easton, Easton top fouring with a deck that's just sitting down across from his opponent and saying, "I'm going to block super efficiently. I'm going to pew pew for two twice every turn," and a lot of decks just can't deal with that. I think Inventor Extraordinaire obviously has like your opponent doesn't know which one of those two it's going to be when they have to sideboard, assuming there's no scouting that's happened, which is a really big deal, right?
Yeah, I agree. I do think though that something that let both of them get away with picking the extreme end of the two spectrums that Dash has available is the fact that you can run hybrid middle of the road with two
Mm.
separate game plans, and because of that fact, if your opponent, again, if your deck hasn't already been scouted or isn't a known quantity by your opponent, the opponent has to respect that you could be presenting either of those game plans when they're going in blind and you flip over dash.
Hmm.
I ran into that at the Rumble. I played against a bunch of both OG and IO, but against OG, I was playing Bolton, so I ended up having to sideboard for if they're gonna pistol, like try to block, then I need to be able to have the extra cards and the damage to get over it. Luckily enough, like almost all of Bolton's cards block for 3, so if they're super aggro, then like I'm running a less consistent deck by adding those cards in, but still able to deal with the aggro version.
Yeah.
I do think it's funny because kind of the picture we've painted of Worlds so far is very mechanologist heavy, right? But that's not actually what happened. Finals was Iceland or Fi, like the uprising clash, right?
Yeah.
Fi takes it down. Icelander LLs a week later in Wallonia, and then at the 20k and 10k, we see a bunch of decks targeting Fi, which I think kind of makes sense. I was expecting more ninja representation there. I thought they were a bit underrepresented, but we did see the decks that like keep ninja down. I think coming out on top anyways. So maybe that balance was correct.
Yeah, and the once Icelander's gone, and obviously Ninja's generally good at keeping Dromai down. Like once Ninja's like, hey, I'm here to play, Bravos can switch back to Crush the Weeks, which are good into Ninja, and um, that like there was space to tech a little bit more into them, I think.
Yeah, I just feel like coming out of the Realm event, we just have to really look at Azalea as a top tier deck, right? I mean, it was literally first and second in those two events. Um, Brody
Yeah,
Spurlock, obviously, with a really innovative deck list. I mean, there were some wild things he was doing there. He's on 3 Bolton Shot, I think, in the entire deck, just the reds.
The yellow
3
infecting
Endless
shot too,
Arrow,
right?
yellow infecting shots. Yeah,
wow,
I think it was on 7 infecting shot total. Um,
that
just
is
really
Azalea was
challenging.
good in the Lexi meta. Lexi just did it a little bit better.
Mhm.
So, but Azalea didn't lose anything since then, so there's no reason she would get worse.
I will say he definitely has sold me on the power of uh, Endless Arrow in Azalea. It's just you get to do the same bullseye bracer shenanigans that you got to do in Lexi in terms of like, oh, you didn't block it, I'll snap my Endless Arrow even though it's the only card in my hand and reload it with bullseye bracers and send it again, and now it's 5 power. And if
I
you don't
argued
block this one, I still have an arsenal.
way back when, probably Crucible or Monarch meta. I was arguing with Steve on how Endless Arrow in Azalea was so good because it's basically just snatch. That's an arrow. It's
Mhm.
like, and you know exactly what you're gonna draw. It's like this is a 0 for 4. If it hits, I'm gonna draw a card, and that's gonna say if this hits, draw a card. So
what
it's
if your
just
Snatch always drew Snatch
a
And
block
block
3.
three.
and blocked
Yeah,
for three?
And block three.
yeah.
And Azalea getting to so I understand the impulse to be hesitant about it in Azalea when you're not loaded up on infinite go again, but you can fire it, hit, do the snaps, bullseye bracer, fire it again, draw your same arrow, even if you're not going to attack with it, arsenal it again. You drew 2 cards, so at a minimum, like you turned that into your opt for the following turn cycle, and
Yeah.
either whatever arrows on top of your deck or just another buff. It's still like ending with that endless arrow and arsenal. More often than not is still just going to end up being at least that 3 value of any random buff out of the deck.
The wild part is she's at the top of the meta, and there are 2 ranger cards in heavy hitters, and it's not even a ranger set. I mean, I don't know about y'all. I'm gonna put real in every Azalea deck that I build, obviously.
How many traps are you gonna run in Azalea? What do you think?
Don't worry about that part. I just want
Oh, okay,
instant
okay,
to
okay.
break frostbites that don't exist in CC anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's the other the tale of two halves though, basically
Mm.
between Worlds and the Rumble. Obviously, we lose Icelander from CC, and our boy in gold comes roaring back at the Rumble,
For
uh,
real.
ripped
Yeah, I
by
mean,
no other than Alex Becker, among several other people.
So we might as well just get like start talking about the Rumble. So we, I mean, I qualified on just luckily the Realm Games is in Ohio and we live in Ohio, so it's pretty easy for us to just qualify on points for events that we were already going to. But they had these uh, play mats like, with everybody who signed up's name on them, which is a great gesture. But we sat down at the player meeting, and I sit across from Levi, and I'm like,
mhm.
oh crap, I really hope this isn't actually round one because they had announced that it was going to be because I'm assuming he's playing Azalea. I'm playing Bolton, which is not great for Bolton. So,
I mean, yeah, we got to see that in top 8 of the
yeah.
20K.
So we sit down and start the player meeting, and then they're like, all right, we've got enough people who didn't end up showing up, so this is not going to be round one. And I'm like, oh, thank goodness. I did not
Dodged
want
a
to.
bullet.
I didn't want to
Yeah.
start 0-1 because Levi also obviously knows how to play Azalea very well. So they repair, refresh the phone. Table numbers changed. The opponent has not. So I get actually paired into Levi round one. Goes about how you'd expect.
it
Brutal.
was it was a rough gym pairings for the invitational.
Mm.
I felt like I rolled real well gem wise for Worlds. I felt the opposite for the Realm.
You played like 3 Bravos, right?
Two
Yep.
Bravos, and then Roger Bodie's dedicated
Oh yeah.
Sabers Bolton combo, which was just like I took the picture of it, but it was I've never been so thoroughly thrashed. He just ripped a hand that was like had spirit and double lumina and a blue, and already had the reaction, the beacon of victory in arsenal. So it was
Oh
just
look,
like
every single card I need is in this one hand. Look at that.
he threw some equipment in front of my attack, took like I don't know 12 damage, and then just laughed, and then he just like 40'd me.
Oh,
Both teams played hard.
yeah.
And for the uninitiated, Bravo is Vincent's worst matchup. So getting paired into Dagan White on Bravo round two, and Nathan Crawford on Bravo in round three was not what we were looking for out of the
That's
pairings,
rough.
but
That's
it
rough.
happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I ended up pairing it to Yuki for round three, which is on stream if you want to go watch it.
Speaking
I
of
I did
breakout Boltons,
yeah the mirror the Bolton mirror is I did go back and watch the game and it's very prevalent that Bolton has not been super popular. I think the casters are a bit inexperienced with what all the cards did and what was happening, which is totally fair because one Frostbite and Bolton just cries. But me knowing that I am playing a total Raiden build, not knowing what Yuki is playing when we sit down, what when she flips over her equipment, I see that it's sabers, so I know I just have to basically kill her before she finds double Lumina, and wasn't able to do it. So,
yeah.
It was a valiant effort.
yep,
Yeah, I mean, we saw that Switch Bolton do really well over the weekend. Both UT and Ellie Bird top aiding 20K and 10K on the exact same 80 was really impressive to see, I thought. Bolton is Light Warriors definitely back after that ice hiatus.
yeah.
Yeah,
I think the reason to play Bolton is because his Bravo match is very good,
Mm.
and a lot of good players just like the consistency of Bravo.
Mhm.
So if you can end up having a good matchup into good players, then it sets you
Yeah.
up for success.
I mean, Bravo's entire game plan is just to block with a bunch of 3 block attack actions. And it turns out when Guardian has a lot of 2 blocks in their deck, functionally after Bolton ability, their
Significantly worse.
entire game plan falls apart.
Yeah, the idea of just having a naturally solid matchup into Bravo is deeply appealing to someone who's been playing a lot of Inset because it's just I just don't want to see it ever. And but also if you haven't messed around with Bolton too much or are unfamiliar with the Bolton versus Icelander matchup, so just imagine if Dromai LL'd tomorrow, how excited a lot of people who want to play Prism would be that suddenly this like 95-5 matchup that's just like borderline actually unwinnable just disappears, and suddenly you just get free reign to you know free up sideboard slots and um, just go to town and do your thing and not just be like, oh well, got paired into this Icelander round 4. I guess we're done here.
Yeah.
I It's so significant that I hot swapped onto Bolton with like my plan was actually to play Prism at the Rumble, but then Icelander, one of Prism's good matchups, Living Legends, which now releases a bunch of other aggro decks, including Bolton, who I have loved since it came out. So I gotta finally free, so I might as well play the Lightning Man.
Alex may or may not have been one of the bad influences that was getting me to play Prism as well recently, even before Lag debuted. But before we get to that, I just want to say there's one more breakout deck that kind of, in my experience, came out of nowhere. Um, at both the 20K and the 10K, and we saw very consistent, a lot of consistency in terms of which decks were top hitting both events. But Kano was in the top 8 of both events. Peter Budenzik. Peter, how do you say your last name? Because I've heard like 5 different ways at this point. Um, and then Nathaniel Snyder in the 10K. Both essentially playing. So Nathan, I think, actually was playing 80 cards. Peter, kind of infamously at this point, had 8 equipment. He had 60 cards. He had exactly 3 ways to kill Thamai, was his real sideboard. And then he had some draft chaff just for fun, so that he actually had 80 cards.
Some
But I
cracked
mean, that
baubles and
speaks.
titanium baubles.
It was more funny than that because we were looking
Is
at
it
things
like
like
threadbare tunic or something?
Red Bear Tunic,
Yeah.
Heart and Cross Strap, of course, to play your one of Nourishing Emptiness.
That's just value. That card's free in your deck. Congratulations.
um, but I that one kind of shocked me. I know Kano in the hands of a Kano master is always like incredible, right? Icelander didn't stand out to me as a gatekeeper on Kano in the meta. I was always afraid of that matchup as Icelander. But it's very clear, like, do not leave your arcane barrier at home. Also, oh my gosh, watching Julian tear through
So
the turn
sometimes
one
Arcane Barrier
kill
just doesn't matter.
in Orlando. Yeah, well, there was actual AB0 there. Missouri took one game action and then lost the game.
Yeah.
Um,
I think
just just Kano things.
just Kano things.
I feel like there's a confluence of factors that lead to uh, you know wizards being able to capitalize early on in new metas. Kind of for anyone who comes with a history in Magic the Gathering, Dredge is an archetype that exists. It's a graveyard synergy focused thing, and if they just get to pull off their game plan, it almost doesn't matter what you're doing. You're gonna get run over by a pile of creatures on turn 2 or 3, and the way you counter that is bringing your graveyard hate, bringing your arcane barrier and your spell void, uh, and like you just have to decide. Okay, cool. I'm going to respect this, or I'm gonna hope to avoid it. Are your two plans? And Icelander hits LL. What's the first thing the default reaction from every deck is I need less blues, and I maybe don't need all of this arcane barrier, or I need a different setup of it. But a tumultuous kind of unrefined metagame and the departure of the much more prominent wizard just set the stage perfectly for Kano to just capitalize on people who were not respecting it nearly enough.
That's an
There's
interesting
also just
theory. I don't know that I believe it. I don't know anything about people disrespecting Wizard and new metas and letting it win events because of that.
No,
That
that
definitely
sounds very
never
foreign.
happened
I
before.
don't I don't think so. Not once, maybe twice.
Maybe
Back
twice.
to back, 2 weeks in a row, maybe.
Kano's also just a hard deck, so it's not like it's never going to be 10-15% of the field. There's going to be 5, maybe 7 like really good players who play Kano all the time and bring it. So it's you're kind of just rolling the dice. It's like, am I going to get paired into one of those players, or am I just going to dodge? Like my Bolt deck had 0 Arcane Barrier, 0 blues. I did have I did not totally disrespect it. I have Halo of Illumination specifically for Kano, and then also Radiant Flow, the boots. So
Okay.
effectively
Spell
Spell
Void
Void
4 is
4
something, yeah.
in a aggro deck that's gonna try to get Kano at 0 first.
Mhm.
I probably still lose if I see a Kano, but an attempt was made.
An attempt was made.
Wasn't fully disrespected. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think that's something. It's an interesting gap in the generic card pool. Like obviously everyone can run Nalrune for AB1 in different slots, and there is what's the Warren one, the Spell Void one generic set that definitely exists.
Spell Fray?
Spellfray, that's it. But it's particularly when you know when Kano's generally trying to kill you with Aether Wildfire, and the difference between Spell Void 1 and Spell Void 2 accounts for like 4 to 5 damage across the combo turn. Um, it just goes to show, I guess, how big of a difference it is, right? Because classes that have access to Spell Void 2 or effective Spell Void 2, they're jamming it in there 1 or 2 pieces potentially. Um, but everybody else is kind of shit out of luck on that front because Spellfray is just a little underwhelming.
Yeah.
Until you're
Well,
Dramai and run Sand Cover.
speaking of Halo of Illumination,
Speaking
there
of
also
Halo of
has
Illumination,
there also has been a bit of a evolving meta narrative here about kind of out of nowhere, even before Thanos' spoiler of Luminaris Angel's Flow and Gordanian Tome's spoiler of Dissolve Reality, Prism kind of saw a resurgence right there towards the end. I know I definitely started looking at it with Icelander LLing. Lucas Oswald from the Runaways showed up at the 20K with a Celestial Fury Iris switchboard Prism that I know I really liked the look of that list. We had a good chat about fourth figments is feeling like too few, Metamorph isn't a good enough card. And then and now we just have to throw all of that away because wow, what a card Luminaris Angel's Glow is.
We had so many chats, so many games against Jason Scott too, with the old Prism is finally dialing it in. I say old Prism. It's the new Prism, old weapon, but not the old weapon. The the
the new old
the
weapon,
middle-aged weapon.
the now deprecated Luminaris
Yeah.
Celestial Fury.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I think it's a little tragic because of the work that was put in, right, to come to what was sort of a consensus list that was like, hey, if Dromai doesn't exist, this list is a very real deck and able to hang and compete. So it's a little tragic that like those iterations of the deck aren't probably just aren't going to be what ends up punching through now that we have Angel's Glow. The obviously it's just a whole different beast in terms of like resource efficiency and encourages you to build the deck in such a different way. Um,
Mhm.
I mean,
I didn't.
basically just back to heavy yellows, right? Obviously, that's the magic keyword in Luminaris that turns everything on now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think we actually see something kind of interesting happen here, which is I think we're going to see kind of a schism in the Prism community, and there will be two decks that you kind of target different metas with, right? I think there still is an Iris Prism out there that like has Celestial Fury in the sideboard at this point that's just trying to beat up Guardian and the uh, decks that are very limited on go wide. Because Spectra just, I mean, I don't think I've lost to a Guardian playing the Iris plan when I was in New Prism.
That was the
Um,
reason to play it, because I had a good Bravo matchup.
yeah,
It's like
had
if
a
that's
great,
going to be 20% of the field, then all of a sudden you have a probably 80, 90%.
yeah,
Like it's just a very powerful game plan into Guardian.
yeah. But on the other hand, Celestial Fury versus aggro heroes, where you're trying to outvalue them by racing down with heralds. If you draw a hand of four blue heralds, you're just trying to cry and lose because you just don't outvalue them at that point. You really need the 7 power breakpoints.
And if you draw a hand of all red heralds, you also cry.
That's also somehow even worse. Yeah.
Yeah.
But now, Luminaris Angel's Glow, you get to play like 30, 33, 36 yellows. And those are just perfectly respectable rates. Like 2 cards for 6 power go again, on hit, threatening like 5 to 9 value, depending on how much you value the ward off of a rapture, is just absurd.
Assuming you attack with it for, assuming that it then blocks for 8. So it's a 2 card
And
10.
then one ish from the Figment ETB or ETA. I guess it's Enter the Arena in Flesh and Blood.
Sure.
Sure.
Technically correct, the best kind
Yeah.
of correct.
Like you get a courage token, or one arcane damage, or one spectral shield, or a
Exactly.
ponder, whatever that's ends up being worth. But
Talk about man, talk about an upgrade when the deck is more than half yellows and reds and you're happy playing your yellow cards. The ponder went from like missing more than half the time because like you really didn't want to arsenal a blue Herald of Tenacity with
I've
Celestial
definitely
Fury
drawn Heart of Fandel off of a
off
ponder.
of the ponder.
Yeah.
But now you rip off the top and it's like a yellow Herald of Ravages, and you're like, absolutely, put in the arsenal.
Ship
It's
it.
totally worth my 3 value. Yeah, is Figment of Erudition is just absurd now compared to what it was 2 weeks ago.
I think that's the scariest upgrade in my mind, right? Like the
Mhm.
old OG Luminaris being able to be like, all right, Herald of Erudition, 5 dominate, go again, on hit,
Yeah.
draw 2. Like that's scary. But there were, you knew there were 3 in the deck, and if you could, uh, so I played a ton of Chain at the time. If I'm like, I need to save, make sure that Grasp of the Arknight plus a card stops one of them, right? And you specifically accounted for that in how you would choose to defend other things because it was such a draw 2 is absurd. It's so insane, especially when Luminaris is just like blanket go again for everything. Um,
Mhm.
and now you've got that same line available to you. You don't have infinite chaining of heralds with go again, which is a great safety valve of this card and a wonderful feature, so that they can't just go erudition, 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 something else, which would be utterly insane.
The good old days.
The uh, sure, that's what
But
we'll go
so now
with.
you could just get to have your Figment of Erudition and just like sitting there waiting until you draw like a dud hand, and then you just get to flip it and attack with it, draw 2, get like a fresh hand, and it has
Mhm.
go again, and you get to do something with them, those
Go
two
play two
cards.
heralds after that.
Right.
Yeah.
I think what's go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so there's a fourth version of that play that plays out differently, but also isn't relying upon actually hitting. And even literally just adding a fourth instance of the erudition
Yeah.
type effects that are such great card advantage is
I mean,
incredibly powerful.
it's even worse than that you're thinking of, because so not only does Figment of Erudition / Soraya Archangel of Knowledge exist now, and Soraya, of course, has the on attack banish draw two, but also, if you have your little plan for each piece of your armor is like blocking one of the three eruditions, but there's 4 to 6 eruditions now because Figment of Rebirth and Avalon exist. So you block out the first 3 eruditions, and then one of my random heralds hits, and I rebuy an erudition. I put that right on there on top of my deck.
Yeah, this conversation
It's
makes me so happy that Heavy Hitter is just going to bring new brute cards out.
yeah. I mean, I think the matchup I'm most excited for now in terms of what's really improved is Dromai, actually, because what's really really good at clearing a board state is Figment of Eruditioning a dragon with Dogen, and then rapturing for free guaranteed, and swinging one of the 2 cards that you drew at a different dragon. It's just like, for 1 card from hand, you can kill 2 other dragons essentially, and you still have an extra card left over after the draw two. It's I think that matchup might be a lot better now.
Yeah, like
I don't know if
it's
a
it's
lot
it's
better
it's
is
not going
the
to
is the
be.
I
word,
don't know.
It
but
I think
certainly
it's a
won't be
lot
prism
better.
favored, but
I
like
think it's. I think it.
95-5 now might be 70-30.
That's well, yeah. You stole my line. That's exactly what I
Yeah.
was going to say. That's like a 700% increase in Prism's win rate in the matchup, or something ridiculous like that, right? Like, it went from being abysmal to, oh, this is winnable. Because I've played decks that have 70-30s before. Are you kidding? I'll take that. Especially if we feel super favored into things like Fi and Katsu, which I'm not sold on yet, but I think this our ninja matchup with lag is so much better than what it was with LCF, because the whiffs just aren't there anymore.
Yeah.
We also don't have to spend more than 2 cards for a Herald with Go again, so pitching to swing a Raptured Angel is like a real thing now.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
Casual 2 card. Well, I mean, if you just hit with a Herald for 6 that they don't have a popper for and they're on 2 blocks, hit with any old
Well,
Herald for 6, get your Figment, flip for freezies, and if it's a yellow War Tune, uh,
no. You want some real depressing math? Okay.
here we
All
go.
right.
please
The
shatter my
dream.
dreams.
2 card hand, a yellow, and a Herald of Erudition. That's all we need. Okay. Pitch a yellow, play Herald of Erudition. That's 5. On hit, it goes to Soul. On hit, you get a Figment. So the Figment is 6. You Rapture it. You draw 2 cards. So the Rapture is worth 4 because you have Ward 4 now. So that's 10 value off the 2 cards already. You have 2 cards in hand. We'll say. So we'll say instead of the 1 value, you got Figment of Erudition. So we're going to count a card as 3 value. So there's 2 additional value on top of the baseline 1 value that a Figment's worth. So we're at 12. And then on your 2 cards, hey, look at that. You also drew a Red Herald of Protection. So that's another 7, plus a Spectral Shield is 8, plus another Figment is 9. So we're at what? A 2-card 21? 2-card 21 value?
Oh dear.
Don't let the heralds hit.
Don't let the Heralds hit. Seven's gonna be the new 6, though. I think that's one of the more interesting facets of
Evil,
New Prism.
vile thing you just said.
Yeah. Uh, turns out,
It's,
Well,
it's
that
true.
is interesting though, because in heavy hitters we're getting the 4 block cards that are
Mm-hmm.
specifically block. So blocking sevens, there's just more ways to do it instead of a 3 block and a D react. It's like here's a 3 block and a block card. There's just
Mm-hmm.
if that's what people are worried about, like blocking 7, you just have more cards now that let you get to that number.
That's true.
I
There's
don't.
not a lot of decks that can play a test of strength versus Prism and win the clash though, because Heralds have really big attack values. It turns out, and giving a gold to a deck that wants yellow cards in their pitch zone seems really not great for your opponent.
Well, letting the heralds hit also isn't great. So
That also is not great.
Yeah, I don't think so. Like the ability to block a 7 damage thing, like I think that there's enough of that. But the playline's like exactly what Rhea just alluded to. Uh, the potential value that you can get out of a turn with this new Luminaris is dramatically higher than what you could do
Yeah.
before. I also think it's
you just don't have to pay 2 for go again now. You
right.
just get go again for pitching the card.
Simply play to the motif of your hero and do the thing. I do like that they brought back yellow matters. That felt like a very
Mhm.
appropriate Prism mechanic or piece of her mechanics, which
Yeah.
is cool.
I mean, it's just like a core identity of light at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because Bolton also is incredibly incentivized to play yellows over blues,
Yeah.
and
Also,
it's pretty
Bolton's
cool
best
for him
cards
as
are all
well.
yellow as well.
Yeah, I mean, same with Prism. The Figments are all yellow. Soul Shield is one of the best cards in the deck. It's yellow. Angelic Wrath is an absurd card because it's a yellow head jab, but it's also reaction speed. It's just
And it's also incredible. Everyone knew that New Luminaris was obviously much worse than original Luminaris, but I think Angel's Glow like illustrates how large that divide actually was because
Mhm.
Angel's Glow is a remarkably more fair card than
Oh my god,
original
yeah,
Luminaris. Uh, but also Angel's Glow is a remarkably better card than Celestial Fury. Just
yeah,
not having to specifically invest those resources and even like the timing of Celestial Fury's ability, like that was actively a downside, right? That kept you from doing the Herald of Erudition tricks and being able to utilize the payoffs from drawing cards.
yeah.
I think the last thing that I appreciate about the design of Angel's Glow and New Prism and the direction that LSS wanted for this is I know I've heard you mention some ways where basically the with the figments and an appropriate sort of game plan into it, you don't need to resort to Spectra to beat certain
I th-
matchups now.
I think
We
think
suspect the fact
if
that there's a
you
chance, I think, is
yeah,
is impressive enough. Um,
versus the grow tall decks, I think there is a plan based on what I've been looking at, based on the conversations from the instant speed discussion with James White and Brian Gottlieb and the LSS developers that were like, yeah, it's just
Chris Geary.
awaken Chris Garrett. Yeah, thank you. Um, yeah, just awaken an angel every turn for 4 turns in a row, and then you've got a board of 6 allies, and your just opponents just lose on the spot. um,
Well, easier
I
said than
believe.
done, Chris. Okay.
Hey, soul food.
Soul food though.
It's a
It's
lot
in the
more
maybe
real
board.
now. A lot more real now than it was with Celestial Fury because it's actually a pitch card.
Yeah, I think that
I know.
is that's a
I'm
massive difference.
yeah. The more I think about it, the lower I get on reprimand. Um, I think that good Bravos just play all their 0 for 4s like their D-Reacts because they cover up Iris breakpoints well. Also, it's just efficient. And if you ever have a turn interaction where you play a Herald and Bravo pops and you're like, aha, reprimand. And Bravo's like, aha, sink below. I'm still blocking 7. You just kind of lose on the spot, I think.
Just slump deep in your chair and be sad.
I think it is really bad. I don't think you lose on the spot though.
Listen,
Because
I'd
they're
love
still they're
saying
still
that it's right.
investing
It's
resources to.
never true. I don't know. I'm just used to Storm Striders, and now there's decks where it's like, wait, I just made a tempo negative play, and I don't have a buyout on the board. What?
Imagine, imagine,
Playing the game like the rest of us now.
imagine playing a weapon that actively kills you to use it.
Imagine playing a weapon that can attack. What's that like?
Fair, fair. I split the difference though. I've got one of each at this point.
You do.
Coronet poke. Well,
Well, I
and
mean, we're kind of in a weird lull now, right? We don't have anything until the end of the year. I think there's one European battle hardened, um,
yeah, I
and
think there's
then
a one or two, but nothing really near us until Cincinnati, just after the new year.
Cincinnati, which is 24. Yeah. I'm excited for that. I plan to be there. I don't know about y'all.
Is
Um,
that before or after heavy hitters?
that's
Before
before.
it's the first weekend of the new year, like the
It,
fifth, sixth, seventh, I think.
it's going to take a lot of self-restraint to not play Prism.
You're gonna
So
play
much
Prism. I
restraint.
mean,
I'm. I will play an illusionist. I'll lock that in. I will play an
oh yeah,
illusionist.
I guess we won't have Angel's Glow, so you'd have to.
Yeah, real life is not Talishar, tragically.
Unfortunately.
I don't know if I'm gonna go to Cincinnati yet or not. I'm kind of the break from competitive season has been really good, and maybe I'll feel differently after a couple weeks in the holidays and more time away from it. But ProQuest season into Spain, into Thanksgiving, into invitation, just like a 2 month stretch that was
Yeah,
just nonstop.
you're the globetrotter, so you have a good excuse, right, for needing the break.
Yeah, thinking about it, we picked a great time to start a podcast.
There's nothing
Right,
going on.
right as nothing is going on,
Yep,
and also the holidays, so we're all gonna be busy.
conditions are
Perfect.
perfect.
If you want
IP3 at its
more,
finest.
we literally IP'd ourselves, guys.
We
It's
did it.
perfect. We're living up to the name.
Oh man. Well, any other late hitting revelations on New Prism or Numenaris 3.0?
Okay, so we play all the fables: Light of Soul, Heart of Fyendel, Great
Yes,
Library of
yes,
Solana, all of the cards that don't block
Mastercog,
and
it's a
don't do
yellow. Let's
anything.
go. Plague
Oh my
Hive.
yeah.
god, genius.
We figure out how to change our name to Viscerai so we can play Arcanite Shard as well.
I have Ophidia. We get to play I in this deck.
I do kind of love though that Prism can just unabashedly run Heart of Find All, and it's just always gain one. There's no like other decks can run it, and be like, sometimes I'll gain one. Nope, you
I
will
mean,
you will
I
what's
gain
your
have
one.
record, Alex?
I have played against an Azuri. It was a very long game. We ended up going to time, but throughout the game, because I was shuffling my deck so much, I got 7 life off of Heart of Flame.
Insane. You were a 41 life Prism. You didn't even start at 32 that game.
Yeah, still couldn't win.
Yeah, that's the secret tip. Just throw as much money at the deck as possible and play all of the fables.
Here's my $10,000 deck. I bet you can't beat it. Till I draw
Rake
all the
the
fables in one
embers.
hand.
Who would
Oh,
win? One $10,000 pile of cardboard, or three Ashy Boys?
or one Ashy Boy.
I don't know. You can kill one. It's
Yeah,
it's
that's true.
three that's a problem over a few turns.
Halo is a hell of a card.
Yeah, yeah. But
I
awesome.
do think that Ray and I could talk about Prism for the next 3 hours, but
I'm restraining myself
yeah,
a lot.
doing our best not to.
I will be streaming it this Saturday, getting my first impressions for Ladian on Talishar, and then we'll see. I keep telling myself I'm not allowed to edit my deck list anymore until I actually play games with it.
it's a it's
I'm
a
in the
good
same boat.
it's a good rule. I mean, it makes sense. There's only so much theory crafting you can do before you draw a card, and you're like, wow, this hand feels terrible because this card's in it.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
don't know until you put the work in. But I am excited. In 3 days, we've got Breezy's spoiler that is inevitably something Runeblade, and I'm going to be streaming with whatever that is. Hopefully next Tuesday. We'll see how quick it gets in there. I gotta my money's on either a rune chant doubler that's like not Mordred Tide increasing, but like something that's like the next action card that you play that creates rune chants, like double it or some kind of increase, um, or something cute with like an eloquence token, be like a zero cost go again that like makes an eloquence token, and then the next time you play a Runeblade card this turn, draw a card. So you spend a card for a go again for something else and a random cantrip or something. But
Well, based on the Prism price trends, I hope you've bought 40 Cold Foil Eloquence tokens before
I
Saturday.
have one.
Yeah,
I have one. I don't think I want to buy more than one.
I'm excited. My Light of Soul and my very poor decision Impulse by Vestige of Soul both get here tomorrow. Because when I saw lag, I was just like, listen, if there's a card that could go in this deck, I need it now before it spikes. And dear God, they have spiked
So
everything.
you're full fancy prism now, right?
I'm
Minus that one card.
uh I'm almost full fancy prism. I need Norrund gloves, Mage Master boots, and Tunic, and then the deck is fully cold foil. Yeah,
I
we're
know someone
almost.
who's got a tunic.
I know someone who doesn't have $6,000 for a tunic.
Fair,
Yeah,
fair.
well. All right, should we
Um,
wrap this up?
That's it. That's all the soul food for thought you're getting today. Thank you for hanging out for our inaugural IP3 episode. Uh, we'll aim to be publishing about every 2 weeks, uh, ideally in the vicinity of Thursday. So be on the lookout for the next episode. And if you got any cool topics you want us to talk about or address, hit us up in the comments. And otherwise, we will see you next time. This is the IP3 signing off. Later.